protein down. When we get to the urinary system, we will talk about the components of nitrogen that are found in every single portion of protein and how that protein can be very, very hard on the body to break down because of the byproduct of nitrogen that's there. Okay? Deficiencies can lead to weight loss, muscle wasting, anemia, and we'll talk about why as we move through this presentation. Keep in mind that proteins are building block structures. They are anabolic in their makeup. Anabolism is to build up. Catabolism is to break down. Okay, so these are anabolic components, building block components to help us make cell structures, to help us, and they are the base component for all the enzymes in our body, for most of the hormones. Now, two classifications of hormones, amino-based, so those are the water-soluble hydrophilic-based hormones, and the other classification of hormones was the lipid-based hormones or the cholesterol/steroid-based hormones, okay? Transport of oxygen. Wait a minute! Remember hemoglobin? Hemoglobin is a protein. Hemoglobin. The globin indicates that that is a protein chain. Regulation of water balance, and we'll talk about how in chapter 25, but I'll quickly tell you albumin. And albumin is that number one protein that will retain water in the body. Remember we talked about it when we talked about burn victims and being able to retain water in their body, and the number one cause of issues for our burn victims is dehydration followed by infection. Keep in mind that albumin, readily available, and if I wanted to see albumin, where would I actually go and take a look while I was in my kitchen? Open up the refrigerator door, take out an egg, crack it open. The white of the egg, the translucent portion that I throw in the pan, that is all 100% albumin. Okay, so there might be a test question on that. I've seen it on the exams before. Keep in mind that that process for which I throw an egg in a pan, in a heated pan, and it causes my albumin to change from a translucent clear substance to a very white and very solid structure, is called denaturing of that protein. So that also may show up on the exam. Okay, proteins help to control the pH levels and the formation of antibodies. Proteins can be converted to a now it says converted to a carbohydrate. A carbohydrate-like product. Okay. There is the utilization, and again, it all comes back to protein being broken down or digested into amino acids, made into structural proteins, enzymes, hormones, plasma proteins. However, the other pathway, providing us with, there it is right there, energy, CO2 and H2O. Glucose in the presence, or glucose-like materials in the presence of oxygen, providing for us energy, CO2 plus H2O. Okay. Same pathway, just in a different format. Again, proteins from foods go through the process of hydrolysis. Remember, we talked about all the way back in week number 2 of semester number 1, I have a kid who likes to eat oatmeal. He's going to leave his half-eaten oatmeal on the countertop when I get home from class, and I'm not going to be happy with him. Why? Because now I have a piece of concrete that's sitting in that bowl, and I refuse to go and scrape that bowl and scrub and scrub and scrub because he is lazy and didn't do what he was supposed to do. So, and he knows by now. I get your phone, you get the bowl, go and take it and put it in the sink, fill it with water, and just let it sit there for a couple of hours. Why? Because the water, the hydro, will lyse or break apart those component pieces and break that back into a very soft based material. Okay. We will also talk when we get to chapter 20, what is this, 20, 24, 20, when we get to chapter 25, we'll talk about, we'll talk about it with the urinary system here very quickly. This nitrogenous-based material making something called urea. Ooh, that looks kind of familiar. What do you think that becomes? Urine. Okay, so we'll talk about it here in the next video. With vitamins, and we're going to go through a number of vitamins, you need them in small quantities. However, because of the quality of the food product that we are now getting, you may find that the quality and the content of the vitamins that are there is actually lower than we'd like them to see. Because what happens is, as we have gone to mass production, and we've gone to large-scale farming instead of small-scale farming, what we find is the nutrients that make up these vitamins come directly out of the ground. If you never let the ground rest and regenerate, you are just continually stripping out any of the any of the nutrient that's there through that plant-based product. And so instead of doing rotational crop farming, instead of doing years of rest, we just find that these fields are just repeatedly planted over and over and over and over again. And the nutritional content, we may have really good looking materials, fruits and vegetables. However, the nutritional content of them is not nearly what it was 50 years ago. Okay? When we talk about vitamins, we have to go through some very specifics, and we have to break them into their component categories. Number one, what we call water solubles. Water solubles mean that they're ingested into the body, they are hydrophilic, and therefore, over a period of time, can be absorbed up. But if there is too much at any one time, it can be easily eliminated out through the waste system and the urinary system in that water. Okay, so the water solubles are all the B vitamins plus the C vitamins. Okay, B's and C's. Fat solubles made of lipid-based materials, A, D, E, and K, ADEC. And we've already talked a little bit about K, but we'll talk about the other ones now. So here we go with the fat solubles. Again, lipid-based, made from what we call carotenes. Carotenes are what you see in these very colorful based food products. Vitamin A gets stored in the liver. It is heavily concentrated in meat or meat-based products. Still found in vegetables, and you can see still found in very colorful vegetables, but not nearly in the levels that you would find it in meat. Now, high levels of vitamin A help us with vision as well as regeneration of torn, any kind of ligament or tendon or muscle. It also is key in the activation of the immune system. And so a lot of times you'll hear, oh, I feel like I'm getting sick. Take a whole bunch of vitamin C. Don't. You do not want to do that. Because if you have not been taking vitamin C on a regular basis, vitamin C is very invasive to the system and will kind of shock the system and actually cause you to be sicker for the first day or two before it really kicks in and begins to clear up a lot of the issues with the microorganism that might be making you sick. Okay? So vitamin A actually is a really good way to boost the immune system and to kind of wake it up. And it's very hard to get too much. It would have to be an animal source. Most of our supplements that you find in the store are not animal-based sources. They are plant-based sources to prevent some kind of excessiveness. But the excessiveness, nausea, headache, dizziness, hair loss. What we're really concerned about, though, are these birth defects. And so they recommend that no mom who is pregnant take any vitamin A during the course of the pregnancy. But they also do not want moms administering topical vitamin A because it also can soak into the body systems and cause defects in the infants. One of the big products that you've seen come to the market, and it was only prescription grade up until about, I don't know, it's probably been about 10 years ago, is called Retinol or Retin A, and it is a fantastic way to burn off approximately 5 layers off the top of your simple squamous epithelium on your face and get down to the layers that have not yet been so damaged and eliminate the bacteria that causes acne. And I know a number of people who had really great success with it. But that level and concentration of vitamin A could eventually cause a birth defect if mom was taking it while she was pregnant. Deficiencies. Number one, night blindness. Why? Because vitamin A is directly responsible for the rhodopsin, it's called rhodopsin, that we find in the rods of the eye. And so they have an issue, your patient will have an issue with differentiating shapes, what we call monochromatics, and grays. But vitamin A, one of the really easy ways or easy sources to re-infiltrate a lot of that nutrient. Here's vitamin D. Vitamin D happens, what? It's a steroid, yeah. Stored in the skin, liver, spleen, brain, bone. It is a carrier or booster for calcium and phosphorus. Without vitamin D, you have no calcium absorption and no phosphorus absorption. Okay, so you could eat like whole handfuls of chalk, which is made out of calcium, by the way, and none of it would absorb. So when we talk about osteoporosis, one of the questions, and this still blows my mind, I had a provider that once upon a time asked me about my calcium intake, asked me about whether or not I was drinking milk. No, because it's not really a good source of calcium. We'll talk about that somewhere down the road. But they never asked me about phosphorus, and they never asked me about vitamin D. And I actually, at the time, probably had a little bit of a vitamin D deficiency that eventually was addressed. And the way that you can figure out if you have a vitamin D deficiency, look at the immune system. Are you struggling with sickness, especially during the winter time periods? And I ended up with something that looked like pneumonia, which was very surprising to me. However, vitamin D, which initiates the immune system and kind of wakes that immune system up, didn't have enough of it to cause the immune system to recognize that there was some kind of bacteria causing pneumonia in the system, okay? Here are deficiencies. And these are children versus adults. We don't see much deficiency in children anymore. The deficiency is called rickets, and it causes them to look like they have bow leg. They've been riding a horse, and when they get off, they have that bow-leggedness. In this country, we haven't seen it in a long time because we have really great calcium sources. However, there are a number of individuals who are remnants from Eastern Europe, Western Europe, that might be in their 70s and 80s, who as children just did not have sources of vitamin D available to them, okay? Osteomalacia is the adulthood format, and this is a conversion issue. They are not able to convert the vitamin D, therefore they get a softening of the bone. Excess vitamin D, diarrhea, calcification of soft tissues, and eventually some renal damage. Here's my vitamin K. And again, we talked about vitamin K for its clotting factor. Here are sources up here, so take a look at the sources. Vitamin K helps to convert and activate the bacteria that are found inside your intestinal system. Without vitamin K, you have no bacteria functioning properly. What we're really concerned about, though, deficiencies leading to bruising and bleeding. And again, look at the sources. Pretty easy to get. Strawberries, meat, beans. These are all very common-based foods. Eggs, large amounts of eggs. Okay? Vitamin E is called tocopherol, and vitamin E is key in prevention of what's called oxidation. And so oxygen that's contacting our body can cause some damage. If you don't know what oxidation is, look at the Statue of Liberty. Initially, when she was brought over, she was copper in color. What color is she now? She's green. And what you're seeing is an oxidative process right before your eyes. There is the same process that occurs in your body, in which oxidation of your cells will damage your cells and cause them to die off. Well, we want to prevent that. Vitamin E and vitamin A are what we call antioxidants. Ooh, I've heard of that before. Right, because that's a big marketing catchphrase to get you to buy their product. And so oxidation or antioxidants prevent the oxidation and the damage of tissues and prevent the dying off of those tissues. Here are our sources. We've already looked at those, but just a little synopsis for them. And again, fat solubles mean that they are lipid-based. They can freely cross the phospholipid bilayer. However, we don't want to take them in too high of volume or concentration because they actually can cause damage to the cells of the body if too much is stored in the body at one time. Let's talk about water-soluble vitamins. The water-solubles are the B's and the C's. B1 is called thiamine, key in nucleic acid synthesis or the ability to make new RNA and DNA products. Deficiencies lead to muscular weakness and a condition called beriberi. Very, very common in chronic alcoholics. Okay, there are sources right there. These have now been fortified in our cereals. Okay, fortified with thiamine. Well, what does that mean? It means that you can now create the nucleic acid to be able to create new DNA. Number 2, riboflavin. Riboflavin helps to activate glucose and fatty acids to be used as fuels. There are sources. Without riboflavin, visual disturbances, and probably one of the earliest signs is dermatitis, inflammation of the skin, itching, flaking. B3, which is called niacin, directly responsible for so this niacin, you've also heard it referred to as nicotinic